What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Thoughts. I'm Gio Galvez, and I'm here with you today for the NFL draft grade. That's completely the end of the NFL draft is done. This is the full grade from all 7 rounds. So I'll do it for each team, all 7 rounds. Obviously, as you see, John and David weren't able to join me today. That's okay. We're gonna get along with it. So let's get right into it. So to start off, before I get into the draft itself, the grades itself. I'm gonna tell you, kind of how I did it. First off, I did alphabetical order. It's the easiest way to do it. Second off, the way I graded each team was first, did they get the players of the positions that they need most importance? Um, Luckily, using ESPN as like a help or in other resource, but ESPN has it written, what they needed. Also thought there was other positions that they could have gone depending on which team. So my first thing is, did they get the position they needed, and how high of a grade did they get it? How high of a round did they get it on? Now, also depends on if they got a position that maybe necessarily there wasn't the most importance, but they could have used, and it was their player there was the best in that position, best option next available. So I'm gonna take that into account as well. So you're gonna see like a lot of teams are a little, I try to keep it at the same level, and it's mainly the position first, the most important ones. If they got those first, or they got enough of it, they get the higher grade and go on from there. But we'll see as we go on. So all right, let's get right into it. So to start off, Arizona Cardinals, I give them an A minus. Now the reason for this was that, in my opinion, they loaded up in a lot of positions that they needed. They missed out in a defensive tackle, but I think they got a lot of what they could use from. And if they're really going off like trying to build around Kyler Murray, if that's what they're really trying to do and things, they're really getting a lot of stuff around and getting him weapons, getting a lot of help, whether it's on the O line. So and the secondary and defense. So I think they did very well, a very good job. So just looking at it, this is the order that the NFL the Arizona Cardinals drafted their players. Got Marcin Harris Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State, Darius Robinson, edge out of Missouri, Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers, Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State, Isaiah Adams, offensive tackle out of Illinois, Tip Raymond out of tight end out of Illinois, Elijah Jones, cornerback out of Boston College, Datrion Taylor Demerson, safety out of Texas Tech, Xavier Thomas, edge out of Clemson, Christian Jones, offensive tackle out of Texas, Tejuan Palmer, wide receiver out of University of Alabama, Birmingham, and Jaden Davis, cornerback out of Miami. Now, what Arizona needed were wide receivers, corner, edge, defensive tackle, and O line guard. You need an offensive guard. Isaiah Adams, he got a tackle. I believe he also has played he also has played left guard before moving to tackle, which he played in both sides of the position of tackle, left and right. So he's also played left guard. So in the scenario, yes, although they didn't get specifically a guard, offensive guard, they could put, if they need to, Isaiah Adams into that position. So I think that also covers it. They got Kyler Murray weapons, and obviously the number one receiver in the draft, Mark Harrison Jr. There was word, a lot of mock drafts done by um, analysts and people in the NFL believing that there was a chance that the Cardinals would trade away that fourth pick to either the Giants, Vikings, Raiders, or whoever it was going to be, and that Arizona was going to settle back and get either Roma Dunes or whoever ended up landing for them back there. But they ended up keeping the pick, which I think was good. Originally, I thought they kind of got a little already put on that they were going to get Marcin Harrison Jr. and they weren't really sure, but they stuck to it, and I think it helped a lot. Also adding Tejuan Palmer, another wide receiver, just to help out there and get another option for Kyler Murray to use. Again, like I said, got him protection on the offensive tackle. Two of them with Christian Jones also coming from Texas there. And in the defense, you got your two corners, you got your edge, and then, well, even more now I'm looking back at it, you got Trey Benson, another running back, to help out running backs. Running backs was a position that I didn't think was so deep or great in this draft, but I think quite a few teams needed it, and quite a few teams that did need it, they didn't go for running back. So you'll see that later on. And but kind of to pair up with James Conner to learn from James Conner, they got Trey Benson. He obviously he'll be like if he stays going the right projection, he'll be the future taking over as for the running back position. And then they get another tight end just to help out. So I think they did very well in loading up in a good way that would help now and in the future. Number two, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm not saying I'm gonna give them a decent grade. I gave them a D. Originally, I was thinking an F, automatic just off the bat because of the Michael Penix pick. I gave them an S. However, looking back at what they got, who they picked and stuff, they moved it up to a D, but it's still a bad grade. They, I look, I know what they were thinking because their general manager said, but still, it still wasn't it. Look at the Falcons. They need a corner, edge, which I think edge was their number one need first. Um, Defensive tackle, linebacker, and offensive tackle. This is how their picks went. They went Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington, Roque or Horrowell, defensive tackle out of Clemson, Braylon Trice, edge out of Washington, Brandon Dorlus, defensive tackle out of Oregon, J.D. Bertrand, linebacker out of Notre Dame, Jace McClellan, running back out of Alabama, Casey Washington, wide receiver out of Illinois, and Zion Logue, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Off the bat, the Michael Penix Jr. pick, bad pick. Didn't need a quarterback. Obviously, the AD said that they were trying to take a page from the Green Bay Packers when the Packers drafted Jordan Love to learn under Aaron Rodgers and eventually take over the reins like he did last season. And I believe I said in the last episode about the first round picks that they're not. Of course, they know it, but they really didn't take into play that one, Michael Penix Jr.'s age compared to Jordan Love's age when coming out of college, and then the fact that the Falcons had just paid a $180 million contract to Kirk Cousins. Well, haven't paid it, but they gave him that contract to pay for 4 years there. Now you want Michael Penix Jr. to learn about for a year or two and eventually take over. He's gonna if it's 2 years, he's gonna be 26. If it's at the end of Kirk Cousins' contract because Michael Penix Jr. isn't planning out how you thought, he's Michael Penix Jr. is gonna be 28. So it not working out in that scenario. It's not the best way to think about this. So they really didn't take into account everything that was going to come to it, even though all the answers are there, and the fact that he's injury prone as well. So that was a bad pick. Number two, now you would think a defensive tackle, that's what they needed. That was good. Yes, the position itself was good. The player they got wasn't. They reached. There was other better players in that position that they could have gotten, instead of reaching on it. Obviously, Brian Murphy was gone. I thought, in my opinion, behind Brian Murphy, the best next defensive tackle was Jazan Newton, and he was still. It was either him or Devondre Sweat. Either one of those two, you could have gone and not go wrong. But instead, the Falcons reach and get Ruke Ohoro. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. They got him and said that's a big reach when you could have gotten Newton or Sweat. So that's another big part of why they got the grade letter of a D. Although they fixed it, getting Braylon Trice and getting their edge, it does one. You got a third round edge when you could have had a first round edge, the best defender off the board, with either Dallas Turner or Latu. You could have had either, or even Jared Verse. You could have had one of those three, one of the best three defenders in this draft, and instead you decided to go quarterback. So again, because of these things, I probably should just given them a D minus. Honestly, I'll change the grade to a D minus because of that. Because it all just comes back and it doesn't help. Now they double down by the Falcons double down by getting another defensive tackle just to help on the line. They got a linebacker which you needed. That's fine. But you got a running back you don't need. You really don't need as you have Bijan already there and Tyler Algier who had a great rookie season. Of course, he didn't produce as much this season because Bijan came in. But again, didn't necessarily need it. Another wide receiver, sure, you could add in there to help out, but they got that later on. And then again, another defensive tackle. So yes, they did good in defensive tackle, but instead of a running back, you could have gotten an offensive tackle or even a guard, whatever you thought, or even a corner. A draft where corners were highly taken in the first, second, and even third round. You had to try to get one, but no, you bulk up in the first 4 rounds of quarterback, defense tackle, edge, and again, it's back to that bad Mike Penix Jr. pick. But that's essentially the bad part about it. If you got an edge in that first round, second round tackle, third round, you could have gotten a corner, or offensive tackle. So bad on Falcons. Number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. I gave them a B minus. I think they did very well getting the players that essentially I think they would need, but they actually got really good players in what they got. So they needed edge, cornerback, offensive guard, wide receiver, safety. They get off first with Nate Wiggins, cornerback, Clemson. Great pick. He was a top 3 corner, in my opinion. A lot of people had him top 4. That's fine. He was a great pick. I really thought the Packers were going to get him. They didn't. He drops down to the 30th pick. Baltimore taking that. Originally, I thought Baltimore was going to use their first round on a offensive tackle. I believe he was offensive tackle, offensive guard, but they don't. So that's fine. It still works out. So yeah, they went Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. Then they went Roger Rosengarten, offensive tackle out of Washington. They went Adisa Isaac, linebacker out of Penn State. Devontae Walker, wide receiver out of North Carolina. TJ Tampa, cornerback out of Iowa State. Rasheen Ali, running back out of Marshall. Devin Leary, quarterback out of Kentucky. Nick Samek, center out of Michigan State. And Sanosi Kane, safety out of Purdue. I give them the B minus. They covered the cornerback. They get 2 cornerbacks just to double it on it. They get the offensive tackle, which I think they need it. Although it's not on there, I think they need offensive tackle. I think Rashawn Rosengarten was a good second round pick. They went linebacker, adding more to the defense to replace what they're losing. Wide receiver, I mean, Odell Beckham's gone, but you need someone else to help out with Zay Flowers. Of course, you have Mark Andrews, but he's a tight end. So another receiver out there. See how Walker does with it. I think he didn't do too bad in North Carolina. So running back, again, in this draft, I think a lot of teams just pick the running back just to have a backup, but knowing that this running back room, like this draft, wasn't as deep as previous years before. I thought it was interesting they got Devin Leary, quarterback. I didn't think they would need it after already having their quarterback room already has 3, 4 already had at the end towards the postseason of the season. Obviously, teams move and stuff, so they always had a quarterback room that was deep. In my opinion, I just found that really interesting, and I was like, I mean, if that's what they think works best, and that's what they think works best. At number 4, I have the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills covered pretty much all that they needed. I thought, a lot of people thought it was very interesting that they first made a trade of the first round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then from there, they traded down to the second round as the Panthers traded up to get that last pick. It ended up working out for the Buffalo Bills in this scenario. It ended up working out. They got the players that they pretty much needed in a sense, and the players that they wanted as well. So I give the Buffalo Bills a B. And this is what it said. They needed a wide receiver, corner, safety, edge, center. They hit off the bat first with the wide receiver Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. Like I've said it before, throughout the last season of college football, the one that just passed, even before, he was highly rated going into Florida State, or coming out of Florida State. He was highly rated. He had him a top 3 wide receiver, even throughout the season. It wasn't towards the end where he kind of dropped out. Roma Dunze was because of their spectacular season. He was getting looked on. Malik Neighbors was also getting into the top 3 with Marvin Harrison Jr. So Keon Coleman kind of dropped to the 4 and 5 position. But he was still highly rated. I think it's just about right. I still would have had him at 4 myself. He wins a lot of 50-50 balls. I think he's fit very well with Buffalo. So They got him. Then they ended up getting Cole Bishop, safety out of Utah, Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle out of Duke, Ray Davis, running back out of Kentucky, Cedric Van Pran Granger out of center out of Georgia, Defuan Ulofoshio, linebacker out of Washington, Javon Solomon, edge out of Troy, Tylen Grabble, um, offensive tackle. Sorry, my brain. Offensive tackle out of UCF. Daquan Hardy, corner out of Penn State, and Travis Clayton, offensive guard from England, one of the programs that they have internationally game players. So they cover each one. They cover the wide receiver spot, even though they only got one. And of course, with Stephon Diggs gone, Gabe Davis gone, and they only added Curtis Samuel. Keon Coleman's looking to pretty much have that starting position role. That sorry, not just the starting, the wide receiver one role. The Bills just added Chase Claypool today, which I think could be wide receiver three, maybe even four, but wide receiver three on this one. For safety, they got Cole Bishops out of Utah. I think that was really good. That was the next best option there. I think they got it really spot on. They got their edge later on with Javon Solomon. I think with the third round, they could have tried to get the edge instead because of how quickly edge and linebackers were taken in this draft, how important they were needed. I think they could have gone one earlier. It's not a bad pick with Solomon getting him in the fifth round. I just think they could have prioritized that a little higher. And running back get Ray Davis. I mean, you already have your set running back in James Cook. He's gonna be second, following sure I guess, but I think again with that first pick, you could have been trying to get a center instead. Focus it. Of course, you got your center in the fifth pick, Georgia, but again, I think the priority of it needs to be higher, and that's why they got the B on it. Moving fifth pick, Carolina Panthers. I gave them a B. The reason why I gave them a B, they did pretty well, except again the priority of certain positions and what they got instead of what they should have got. So they needed wide receiver, edge, center, corner, running back. With the first pick in the first round, they traded up one spot essentially to get Xavier Leggett, wide receiver out of South Carolina. I mean, they were high on him. He pretty much said that he wanted to stay in in the Carolinas. He wanted to play for the Panthers because it'd just be much easier for his family to do. Carolina Panthers made that work. They got that going in that first round. I think it was a great one. He's definitely a DK Metcalf type of physique and build. So they're gonna work on that. Second, they went Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas. I think it's a really good pick. He was the best running back in this draft. Carolina Panthers, along with the Cowboys, needed a running back, in my opinion. Obviously, the Cowboys. I didn't think Cowboys were going to go first round running back, but I thought it was a possibility. Definitely second round. And Jonathan Brooks is going to be their guy, keeping them in Texas. But instead, Carolina Panthers get to it first. They get the running back. I think it was a really good pick for them. They covered that. Then they went Trevin Wallace, linebacker, Kentucky. They went Jatavion Sanders, tight end out of Texas. Then they went Charles Smith Wade, corner out of Washington State. Jaden Crumity, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. And then Michael Barrett, a linebacker out of Michigan. Now the thing of this is one, they missed the edge, which again very much needed in this draft. They went linebacker instead. I still think the importance of having the edge specific would have been more important than having a tight end or a linebacker getting drafted in that third or fourth round. I mean, Sanders is already put in as I believe their second or third string tight end. So not exactly the need, the importance, like I'm saying. Also, center again, a center in which you have Jackson Powers Johnson going on and in like the second round to the Raiders and stuff. You needed that I'm just saying it shows the importance of the center in this draft, and they didn't even try to go for it. They didn't even get a O line player. They didn't get an offensive tackle, offensive guard. They could maybe thought move to center. They didn't get center, so I think that was why I gave them a B, because they got linebacker and tight end instead of getting an edge or center. It's showing the importance of it. But they got the wide receiver, they got the running back. That's the corner they needed, which again, another position I think they should have tried to get at the third or fourth round, showing the importance. And then double again with the linebacker and defensive tackle. So moving on to Chicago Bears. Yes, the Chicago Bears. I don't like them, but I think I gave them a fair grade. I gave them an A. With the 5 picks they had in this draft, I think they did very well with what they went with. Again, little in importance, but it wasn't a big deal. And when it came to their picks, so the Bears needed quarterback, wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge, offensive tackle. Number one, they went Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. Now, of course, there was small speculations in the beginning that the Chicago Bears were going to keep Justin Fields at quarterback, either use that first pick to get him either protection or weapons, or trade that first pick somewhere else and get as much as they can to keep Justin Fields. That went all the way once Justin Fields was traded to Pittsburgh Steelers. It was clear Caleb Williams was their quarterback and taking that first round pick. And he was the best quarterback in this draft, so they take him. Now, with the ninth pick, that's where I thought it was very interesting. Originally, I had Rome Odunze going to the New York Giants, what was left, and the Bears using it to get an edge, which was very important, I think, on the defensive side of the ball for them that they needed, and either getting Dallas Turner or Liatu Latu, and they ended up going neither one because even though both of them were open in the option, they decided to go Roma Dunze because he was still open on the board, giving Caleb Williams another weapon, thus having three wide receivers plus the tight end of Komet. And not only that, Odunze could learn under Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, in which he will soon be the wide receiver one to already having that connection with Williams. So it's planning for the future while also planning for the time being. So that's what they used their second first round pick for. Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. Later on, they didn't have a second round pick, but they did have a third, fourth, and fifth. So they went Kiran Amegadiji, offensive tackle out of Yale, which they need, again, protection for the quarterback. They got then it went Troy Taylor, punter out of Iowa. Troy Taylor was rated as the best punter coming out of college. I didn't think it was necessary, but because in this scenario they could have got a defensive tackle. One defensive tackle was semi getting taken out quickly in this draft, so they could have focused on that, but they didn't. It is what it is. They got punter. And then with the last pick, they got Austin Booker, edge out of Kansas. So again, you eventually get your edge, but it was a fifth round edge in which you could have had a first one. But it eventually works out because of the player that you get in that first round, which is Roma Dunza. So it really worked out. That's why I gave him an A. You can argue A minus if you want. I give him an A. Cincinnati Bengals, I give him a B plus. I was close to H minus. I think it's B plus. Fits. Um, I think they very very well in the draft, not worrying too much about the possibility of trading T Higgins or losing him at the end of his franchise tag this year. And they focused on what they really needed most. And I think a big part of it was protection for Joe Burrow. Of course, he got hurt, got tackled quite a bit this season, and they realized they needed some help protecting him, and they went with it. And I really like how they focused on it. So with the B plus, what they needed was wide receiver, which I don't really think that was the first need. So I'm glad they didn't focus on that. Defensive tackle, running back, offensive tackle, tight end. So with the first pick, they went Amarius Mims, offensive tackle of Georgia, one of the best offensive tackles in the draft class. He was rated number four. I think they really got him. I think for being rated number four, he got it really well in the first round where a lot of offensive players were taken, and especially offensive tackles during right after that top 10 pick, offensive tackles were getting taken. Aside from Joe O and Latham that were taken in the top 10, offensive tackles were definitely in that middle of the first round. Mims getting him for Georgia, great pick for the Bengals, knowing that they needed the protection. Then they went Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Again, now going on the other side of the ball, needing the help on it. They got a really good one. Third, they went Jermaine Burton, wide receiver Alabama. Tough, gritty, knowing how Saban plays. Adding just in case they needed to eventually replace T. Higgins. And he knows that he could learn under either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, whichever works out. So I think that was a fine pick. They doubled down with McKinley Jackson, defensive tackle at Texas A&M. They end up getting their tight end backup, of course, needing a backup tight end for Mike Gesicki. They got Eric All, tight end out of Iowa. They ended up getting Josh Newton, corner out of TCU. Always add more to the corner position for them, especially for them. They ended up doubling down tight ends with Tanner McLachlan, tight end Arizona. The only thing about this, I think, is with that sixth pick, you didn't need to double down on two tight ends for the Bengals. I think they could use that sixth pick to reach for a running back, in which they did not in this draft, and to to help out, to get a second running back, at least a young one to learn under Zach Moss. Of course, you're not going to get it over Zach Moss, but to learn under him, and I think they could have used a tight end, at least get. I mean, sorry, use a running back. At least try to get one in that sixth round instead of getting a second tight end. They ended up getting Cedric Johnson, edge. That's fine. Not really necessary for them, but again, where a lot of tight ends in this draft, might as well get one. Came from Ole Miss. Then they ended up getting John Anthony, safety out of Ole Miss, back to back Ole Miss players for the Bengals, and then they got Matt Lee, a center from Miami. Again, hop on the O line. So pretty much, I give him a B plus, almost A minus. The only one that I really think got him that was the sixth round pick of getting second tight end, when I think they could have reached for well, not reach, but try to get a running back. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns that did not have a first round pick, I ended up giving them a C minus. They had six total picks overall. They needed a defensive tackle, a linebacker, running back, safety, and edge. With their first pick, which was in the second round, they got Michael Hall Jr., a defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Okay, you get the defensive tackle that you need. You get what you need. Then they ended up getting Zach Zinter, offensive guard of Michigan. I don't think they really needed the offensive guard position. However, I guess if you look towards the end of the season, you see Joe Flacco he was getting rushed a lot, especially in that postseason against the Texans, where he got sacked and then the two interception, which happened because he threw out the ball because he was about to get sacked. Guess you felt like you need to upgrade in that position, but Zinter, yes, Zinter is a third round pick player, but for your second pick as the Cleveland Browns to be a guard, I didn't think they need to do that. And then after that, in their fifth round pick, then they're getting Jamari Thrash, wide receiver out of Louisville. They didn't need a wide receiver, especially after trading for Jerry Jeudy to the Broncos, trading for him. They didn't need another wide receiver in this one. They could have tried to get a safety, an edge, a running back in the fifth round, especially a safety or running back could have used. The sixth round, they used Nathaniel Watson. They got linebacker out of Mississippi State. Again, they needed a linebacker. They got it. Didn't prioritize that in the third round, their second pick. They didn't prioritize getting a linebacker, which were going really fast. So not very good. That, again, part of why I give them C minus, because not prioritizing the position that they need and which draft pick they used on it. They ended up getting Miles Harden, cornerback out of South Dakota, right after. You need a safety unless you're gonna move them down of these corners to safety. I guess it works out, but again, not going for safety, not going for run back. And then they double down, just getting more help on the defensive tackle with the last pick game. Jawan Briggs, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. You really, the only good thing you got was doubling down on the defensive tackle. You got your linebacker, which should have been getting higher. If you're gonna add Zinter to the O line, I guess if you needed the help, sure, but of course he wouldn't have been there past the third round, and you had to reach for him, and that's your idea, but it wasn't needed. Dallas Cowboys, I gave them a B. So what they needed was a wide receiver, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, running back, and corner. I think they were going to go offensive tackle in the first round because they need to replace Tyron Smith. They need to replace him. So I think that was the most important for them. Like I said, because they need a running back, I thought maybe the possibility they might go running back first round with Jonathan Brooks, but I myself didn't think that was the need for them in the first round. And of course, the Cowboys saw that. They didn't go first. So I think it was good. So what they went with, they went Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle of Oklahoma. In my draft, I originally had him falling to the Ravens at the 30th pick. Even trading back, the Cowboys still were able to get him with the 29th pick. I had Cowboys getting another player because that player was able to play left tackle and right tackle. But Tyler Guyton is still a great player, and he's going to fit great with the Cowboys. So Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, then it went Marshawn Nealon, edge out of Western Michigan. Then it went Cooper Beebe, offensive guard out of Kansas State. I think he's the steal. I really thought he was the first round pick for the Seahawks because Seahawks needed, in my opinion, a offensive line to protect the quarterback after a couple, not a couple, quite a bit sacks and things, injuries that happened to Geno Smith. I think Cooper Beebe, being versatile, playing guard and tackle, he played both in college. They were able to move him around. I thought the Seahawks were going to get it. Cowboys get them in the third round. I think that's a steal. So even with Tyler Guyton there, whatever they need to replace, Cooper Beebe is going to be slotted into that position. So great pick for them. Then we're going Maurice Liufau, linebacker out of Notre Dame. Then it went Kalen Carson, corner out of Wake Forest. Ryan Flournoy, wide receiver out of Southeast Missouri State. Nathan Thomas, out of offensive tackle out of Louisiana. And then Justin Rogers, defensive tackle out of Auburn. They got the defensive tackle at the end, which again, prioritize above. I think they should have, and again, draft that had so many defensive offensive tackles go and then later defensive tackles go. Should have prioritized it. I think it was nice. They doubled down on offensive tackles, what they needed, and then getting Cooper Beebe. Of course, they didn't need offensive guard, but like I said, Cooper Beebe, versatile, could also play guard. So almost they got three tackle. Almost they got three offensive line protection, well needed. They need a center. It's okay. You don't have to. You could focus on other stuff right now. They got their wide receiver that they could add to it. Yes, it's a 6th round, but right now you're dealing with CeeDee Lamb. That's your focus right now. As for the linebacker, not necessarily needed, especially and also with the edge. I know you see Nealon there. He's the next option. If you wanted to go edge, you think you needed it on the defense, okay. But again, not the importance of it. You could have gotten a pretty solid running back on in the 2nd round. The Giants, they had their 2nd round pick was the number 4 pick on it. They didn't get what they skipped on. Essentially, was either Trey Benson, Blake Cornum, Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Bucky Irvin. They missed out on all these running backs that they could have got one of them, and I think Trey Benson would have been the better one. They could have gotten him in that 2nd round, but instead they get an edge. So that's the thing. But I think they still did very well with their picks that they did. They got what they needed, protect the quarterback, get a little help, and move forward with it. So I think the Dallas Cowboys, they get that B. Next with the Denver Broncos, I gave them a B. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with what I chose to do with the 1st pick, the 3rd pick, and then how they went on later on. And again, the prioritizing, that's what this team was. So what the Denver Broncos needed: quarterback, obviously, offensive tackle, corner, edge, center. The 1st pick, they went Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. I seen him in Oregon. I didn't think he was as great. He didn't perform to the level that he was getting praised for. Then going to Oregon, again, they thought he was going to be really high playing 2 years there. Didn't play as the expectations I thought he was. Now, he ended up being the 12th pick because, one, the Broncos need a quarterback. After Russell Wilson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they need a quarterback. Quarterback room is not looking great. They just traded for Zach Wilson, but still, we saw how Zach Wilson played in the Jets. You could either say it was him or the Jets, whatever the situation is. Doesn't look as strong being in the Broncos in the quarterback room. Bo Nix, I think either if he doesn't start the first game of the season, he's starting within game 4, the latest. I think that's how it goes. Again, hasn't reached expectation. Sean Payton saying that he wanted Bo Nix in the beginning. I don't think that should have been the level of what you want. I think if you're going to start like that, Michael Penix Jr. injury prone. That's a lot of the issue, but I think Michael Penix Jr. was a better quarterback when you comparing to the two. Could have gone there. How do you want to see it? Really depends. Of course, a lot of people had Bo Nix being the next one. That's sure fine. Bo Nix, sure, he's the next best option because after that you had Spencer Rattler and stuff like that, and that's kind of a far gap. But Bo Nix, I think he's gonna have a very mediocre time in Denver. I really do. After that, they went Jonah Ellis, edge out of Utah. Then they went Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. I understand that one is just to get Bo Nix's wide receiver back there. Troy Franklin was his number 1 receiver, first option. They have that Oregon connection. They're going to go and try to put it together in Denver. Of course, they used this to also replace Jared Judy, who's there. It wasn't under need, but it is what they do. Need connection for now and the future. They end up going Chris Abrams, Drainey, corner out of Missouri. They need a corner. They got it. And then they went Audric Estime, running back out of Notre Dame. They didn't need a running back again, but again, some teams just took running backs. Then they went Devon Vile, wide receiver out of Utah. Again, helping out, loading up on the wide receiver room, giving Bo Nix something to create some chemistry, get used to, see how it goes on into the future. And then the last pick, they got Nick Gargiulo, a center out of South Carolina. They got their center. They got what they needed. Now, the one that I'm saying to prioritize is offensive tackle. They didn't get offensive tackle. I think they could have used that in the 5th or 7th round. Mainly the 5th, when they, instead of Audric Estime getting that running back, they could have got an offensive tackle and and getting more protection for Bo Nix, feeling more secure. Yes, you get a center. Are you going to move to offensive tackle? Okay, then it covers that, but then you need a center. So you got your center to play the center. You need an offensive tackle. And now you get an edge. You needed the edge. That's good. You got a third round edge. Solid. Got a receiver, Troy Franklin. Now, if you want to risk that he was going to be there in the 5th round or later, if he was going to be there in the 5th round, you could have risked it. But I think Troy Franklin was someone that was going to get taken in the 4th. He's a 4th round receiver. So I think they did fine taking him there. It's all really just Audric Estime should have been an offensive tackle pick right there. But for that, I just gave him a B because they got what they needed. Moving on to the Detroit Lions, I think their first 2 picks, interesting. First pick was really great. First 2 was interesting, doubling down back on it. And we'll see what they're going. But the Detroit Lions, I give them a B+. First pick, they went Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. In my opinion, I had him in my mock draft going first to the Pittsburgh Steelers because I thought he fit that role. He played really gritty, really tough, really hard. The Alabama corners play like that. I thought he was going to fit in Pittsburgh. They skip out on him. They got another great player. The Lions trade up, get Terrion Arnold right after Quinion Mitchell got picked to the Eagles, which I guess, right? I think Terrion Arnold is going to do great for the Lions. That's a position they really needed a lot of help on, and they got a really great pick on it. They got the second best corner in the draft. So going, and then they doubled down in the next round with Ennis Rakestraw Jr., another corner from Missouri, also another great corner. So what did the Lions really need? They need edge, defensive tackle, safety, corner, wide receiver. Now they got it right with the corners. Now with the third pick, they went Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle of British Columbia. Now, although it wasn't a need, I think it was something they needed to address because Jared Goff was getting he getting sacked quite a bit, or he was even getting rushed quite a bit. It kind of looked like at times the pocket was collapsing a little too fast to get the ball out and things like that. And it's something that they I guess the Lions felt like they needed to address, and they went with their third pick with offensive tackle. Sure, it wasn't a need, but I think it was good that they addressed it because he was getting Jared Goff was getting rushed quite a bit. The next pick, they went Seon Vaki, a safety out of Utah, hitting down on the safeties. You could have argued with their third pick they got safety because safeties were getting taken well into the end of the first, early of the second round. But they decided going with their 4th pick on it, still in the 4th round. So either way, they weren't even far apart. They were 6 picks apart, so would have been the same essentially. So they go that. They eventually get their defensive tackle in the 6th round with Mekhi Wingo out of LSU. Get the defensive tackle help in that line. So that's really good. And then they ended it off with offensive guard Christian Mahogany, Boston College. They didn't get the wide receiver. That's fine. I don't think after right now they just paid Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think they would either pick one out of free agency or wait for next year's draft, work with what they have here. Offensive guard, again, more protection for Jared Goff, which is good. They didn't get the edge, but they did get at least a defensive tackle to help rush the QB. So I think they did very well. I gave them a B+. It works out. I think they move players around and they got their importance. It works out. My Green Bay Packers. Originally, I gave them a C+. I was on the fence of a C+. Kind of the players they took and the positions or the importance of it and how things went. It was really like I was really back and forth on it. I'm still on the fence of it. I could change it to C+, but right now I moved up to a B- after looking at it. But again, I'm not against moving it down to a C+, depending how it goes. So what the Packers need: offensive tackle, corner, safety, offensive guard, and linebacker. Now, this is what they went with. Um, First, Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle, Arizona. And the Pat McAfee show, Bill Belichick was talking about. He said Jordan Morgan was a great player. He thought he was going to be a first round pick and everything. Ended up being. Originally, I thought our more importance were corner safety, in which we should have gotten either Nate Wiggins. That was my first priority, or Javon Bullard. And if not, if we're going offensive tackle, which is fine, we do need offensive tackle, which is perfectly fine. We could have had Tyler Guyton. He dropped down to number 29 to the Cowboys. I think Tyler Guyton is a more important play, so I think Tyler Guyton is a better player than Jordan Morgan would have been. I think Jordan Morgan would have been a second round player. And that important, that's where in my grading, one, you didn't get either corner safety, and then when you go tackle, which is fine, you don't get the best next available tackle. So that was a reach on it. That's why, again, my grade dropped for them. Second, they went Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M. Edgerrin Cooper, I think he had the ability to be a first-round pick. Ended up dropping to the second. Perfectly fine. We needed a linebacker. I think he's very versatile. I think it was a really good pick on him. Next pick, again in the second round, we got Javon Bullard, safety out of Georgia. He was the one I thought possibly would get in the first round if it wasn't for Nate Wiggins. We get him in our third pick, still in the second round. I think he's a great pick. In my opinion, he was the best safety on the board. He was the second safety to come off, and we'll get that to later to what team that was. But I think he was the best one. We still get him in our third pick. That's a steal. In our third round, we get Marshawn Lloyd, running back out of USC. After getting Josh Jacobs, we still have AJ Dillon. I don't think we need a running back. I don't think we need a Lloyd, especially not this high. Again, some teams reached up for running backs. In my opinion, Packers were one of them. I don't think Lloyd was all phenomenal at USC. I think there were other other running backs that were better, but I think Lloyd was still a good running back. I think the third round was a good place for him to fit. The furthest he was going to go, fourth round. That was the furthest, but I just don't think the Packers need a running back at this time. Packers double down on the linebackers. They get Tyron Hopper. And then we double down on the safeties. We get Evan Williams, safety out of Oregon. We end up getting Jacob Monk right after, a center out of Duke. I think adding to that line, of course, we didn't get an offensive guard, but we got a center and that could help out, or we could even move them out to the guard position. Monk played also in the other positions, not just center at Duke, so I think it works out. Then we get Kitan Oladipo, safety out of Oregon State. More safeties, that's perfectly fine. I'm not against it. Get Travis Glover, offensive tackle out of Georgia State. Again, adding more to the offensive tackle. Think needing to face that Jordan Morgan one. It's still the priority of it. We could add Nate Wiggins, kill it with the corner draft position. Could have been much better. Michael Pratt, quarterback. I don't think we need another quarterback. I really don't. No matter how good Michael Pratt was coming out of Tulane, don't think we need another quarterback. Could have used it for offensive guard, for corner, something, but quarterback, we don't need it. So I didn't like that pick. And at the end, we finally get a corner with Jalen King out of Penn State. Prioritize for me. One, we should have got a corner instead of Marshawn Lloyd. We should have got a corner there. That was top of it. We should have gotten a corner high, special corners going up very quickly. We needed to get one there at that point. Or even if you Javon Bullard would have dropped to the third round. So that needed to prioritize the corner going to the third round. We got 3 total safeties. Again, I like getting more safeties, but I think in the fourth or the fifth round that we got safety, we could have gotten another corner. So we got 2 corners, 2 safeties, just to balance it out. Instead of the quarter, I could have had an offensive guard. This is why I had them at a B minus, because not prioritizing correctly and could have used in the other positions, in my opinion. Moving on to the Houston Texans. I gave them a B. I think they did very well for not having a first round pick, but with the picks they had. So the Texans needed a defensive tackle, a corner, offensive guard, tight end, and edge. With their first pick, they went Kamari Lassiter, corner out of Georgia. Very good corner, the best. He was 7th ranked overall in corner positions. I think he was a very good pick for them. They needed that for a bit, especially after the postseason. It works out for them. I like it. Then they go get protection for CJ Stroud, He did get tagged quite a bit, but somehow creating youth line now, adding more to it. They get Blake Fisher from Notre Dame. I like the pick, even though it's not needed. I like it. They need a guard. They still got a tackle. It can move them around. A lot of these guards and tackles in this draft played in the other position as well in college, so they're very versatile in moving around. Obviously, they're probably just gonna stick to one, but at times we've seen them being moved around. With the third pick, they went safety, Kalen Bullock out of USC. They need a corner. I think they should have prioritized a corner instead of safety with this pick. But they went with what they thought they needed. Again, double corners. I think they could have used on it, but they went with safety. And so then they went to Cade Stover, a tight end at Ohio State. They're I'm assuming they're hoping he's going to learn under Dalton Schultz again, bringing in more weapons for C.J. Stroud and for the future of the Texans. Then they went to the defensive side of the ball. They went Jamal Hill, linebacker of Oregon. How about that? I think they did need a little more pressure after that Browns win in the playoffs and throughout the season. I think they could have used a little more pressure on the defensive side. So I think that was a good one. They ended up getting a running back right after Jawar Jordan at Louisville. Running back, not really a big priority on it, but adding some youth to it. They eventually went Solomon Bird, edge out of USC. My thing is, if you needed an edge, you should have gone higher for it. So again, instead of getting the safety Bullock, if I said corner, you could have also gone edge. You really could have gone edge in that scenario, or even with the second pick instead of Blake Fisher, you gone edge there. You go offensive tackle third round. So I think again the prioritizing is where I gave the Texans a B because they got good players. Just prioritizing would have gotten you better players in those positions. And eventually you close it out with your defensive tackle Marcus Harris out of Auburn. Again, you need a defensive tackle. This is the only one you get. If you're only getting one, I think you need to prioritize to getting higher. And they get Ladarius Henderson, offensive tackle, Michigan, doubling down the offensive tackles, adding on more protection. Next off, the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts did very well, pretty well. I gave them an A minus, and again, a lot of it had to do with who they picked or what position they picked. They needed a tight end, corner, safety, wide receiver, and edge. I didn't have edge being the top priority. I think tight end was going to be the top priority, and if available, I think Brock Bowers was should have been going to him. I had him in my mock draft going to him. Then actually they went to edge and they took the first defender off the board with Liatu Latu out of UCLA. There was talks that Latu was the best defender in this draft class. There was talks that Dallas Turner was the best defender in this draft class. Both edges. Liatu Latu rushes the quarterback very well. He's best at pass rushing. That's like his best at. He could stop the run game, but he's better at the pass rushing. They really liked him. They're high on him. They got him. That's a great pick. Donovan Mitchell, wide receiver of Texas. Of course, there's a lot of talks about his attitude, the way he was. Part of believe what he had was also diabetes, so like the issue of dealing with that. But Mark Andrews has diabetes, so he's played with it. So a lot of it was just a big cloud over Donovan Mitchell was that because of his attitude, the way he acts, and saying his attitude of it. The Indianapolis Colts had no problem with it. They decided to get him. I thought Donovan Mitchell might have been a first round pick. Second round still good for him. He goes to a team where he's gonna help out Michael Pittman Jr. Then they go Matt Goncalves, offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. I think adding more protection for Anthony Richardson. We saw he got hurt early in the season, which led to Minshew leading the team. I think more protection would help him and allow Anthony Richardson to move out of the pocket some more. Of course, his injury was because he was trying to go for the goal line. He hurt his knee. That's why he was out. Next, they went Tanor Bortoloni, center out of Wisconsin. Again, adding more protection. Not going for the needs, but you're going what's important, and that's giving your quarterback protection, youth protection, and helping moving forward. They go Anthony Gold, wide receiver from Oregon State. This is one where I think they didn't really need to go wide receiver again here. I think they should have gone higher to get a corner, to get a safety, to get a tight end because those tight ends available, and they didn't even try to get a tight end. So In this one, yes, they need a wide receiver, but they got Donnie Mitchell. I think this one they need to prioritize getting a tight end or a corner still. So right after the pick of gold, they went back to back safety. They went Jalen Carlos out of Missouri, and then they went Jalen Simpson, safety out of Auburn. And back to back on that, I guess knowing that the safety position is something they need, they got their safeties, and then they went Micah Abraham, a corner out of Marshall. Corners also going very quickly. Could have prioritized that higher. I think instead of reaching for Matt Goncalves, they could have got a corner there because of how quickly they went. And then Goncalves would have been there in the fourth round, in my opinion. And then the last one was Jonah Laululu, defensive tackle of Oklahoma. Just getting something on the defensive side of the ball on the line, on the trenches. The only thing, again, like I didn't like, they didn't try to go for tight end, which I think they really need. Moving on, Jacksonville Jaguars. I ended up giving them a B plus. I'm between an A minus B plus, but I'm gonna stick to a B plus on this one. I didn't think they necessarily needed a wide receiver, but they thought they did. I guess they're looking for a future for a wide receiver one. They just added Gabe David. They lost Calvin Ridley. You still have Christian Kirk. Of course, they're not wide receiver ones, but you still have Christian Kirk. You have Gabe Davis now. You still have Ingram as your tight end. But they got Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas, that I thought was going to go to the Bills originally, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, the idea is that he ends up becoming the wide receiver one. He's a really great wide receiver. He's quick. He can go for the long ball 50-50, gets the yards after playing for LSU. So I think it's a really good pick. It's kind of what they needed on there, I guess, with Calvin Ridley leaving. So I didn't think so, but it's added on there. That's how I go. Along with other things that the Jaguars needed were corners, defensive tackles, offensive tackle, and edge, along with the wide receiver. With the second pick, they went Mason Smith, defensive tackle out of LSU, back-to-back Tigers that you get him from here. They needed defensive tackle, needed to rush the ball quite a bit, especially they got destroyed against I think again was the Texans with the Jaguars played Texans. They got destroyed on the defensive side and offensive side. They needed some help. So I think prioritizing defensive tackle that high was very good. They ended up going, again, getting what they need, a corner. They got Jerion Jones from Florida State, prioritizing corner, get the next best option there. They went Javon Foster, offensive tackle, Missouri. Again, needing a protection. I go back to that game, the game against the Texans. They couldn't do any. That O line couldn't really protect the running backs, couldn't really protect the pass game. They needed more O line to protect in there. And even the game, I think, is the Bengals. They went to overtime. They ended up losing, and the Jaguars, after pretty much looked like they were gonna get top first spot in the AFC, ended up not making the playoffs because of it. They needed help on the O line on both sides. So I think adding offensive tackle does help out a lot. Right after they go Jordan Jefferson, another LSU player, defensive tackle. They got the two defensive tackle out of LSU, doubling down to try and get that Tigers defense into it. They end up getting DeAndre Prince, corner out of Ole Miss right after. I think this is one where they could have tried to get an edge. Again, prioritize the edge here and get a better play on that edge position. Then after they went Kaleon Robinson, running back out of Texas. Look, you have Travis Etienne. You have Tank Bigsby out there. So I don't think Robinson was the running back position was a priority of it. Again, could have got a different position here. Like I say, we got edge at the fifth where Prince was. You could have gone a corner where Robinson is. So right after they went Cam Little, punter kicker out of Arkansas. They felt like they needed another one. And then the last pick was Miles Cole, edge out of Texas Tech. Again, like I've been saying, edge should have been taken higher, but they got everything they needed. They focused on the importance of it, so that's why I gave them a B plus. It's just the moving up the importance at the end. If they really got that on point, I think they would have given them an A minus A. So moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, I gave them a B minus. To be honest, they hit it on the spot with the first pick of Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. And in my mock draft, I said it was either Xavier Worthy or Xavier Legit, depending on how they want to go with DK Metcalf physique with Legit or a Tyreek Hill type of player, which they already know how to play with Xavier Worthy being the fastest wide receiver in this draft. Of course, they went Xavier. They traded up with the Bills for it to get Xavier Worthy. That was a really good pick. What else the Cowboys in which the Kansas City Chiefs needed wide receivers? They just got Hollywood Brown, so it's going to pair up very nicely. Now with Rice getting suspended, or the possibility of him getting suspended due to the accident that he's been a part of, I think this was really good. But what else the Chiefs need were offensive tackle, defensive tackle, corner, and running back. The second pick, they went Kingsley Summatalia, offensive tackle out of BYU. I think it's a very good add to it. They needed protection a bit. They were getting to Mahomes quite a bit, so they could have added some protection for that. They ended up getting Jerry Willie, tight end out of TCU. Not needed, but I guess when you see Travis Kelce getting a bit older, you're trying to get more tight ends involved to learn under him and work with the system by the time they'll be ready. After you got Jaden Hicks, safety out of Washington State, could have gone for corner more than the safety position, but both of them are needed. So I guess that's fine, but you could have switched. After they went Hunter Nordzad, a center out of Penn State, protection on the O line, I think it helps out. I think it's really good, especially Norad. I mean, it's a fifth round pick, and he was a sixth overall centered. Of course, a lot of these we see like top five centers, top six other positions. It's not because they're not good enough to go higher. It's because the prioritizing of other positions. The Chiefs got the sixth best center in this draft class, and he's going to learn a lot. He's going to fit really good. Then after they went Kamal Hayden, corner out of Tennessee. Now they focus on the corner position. Again, I think they could have gone someone higher or better on it. The last pick they went C.J. Hansen, offensive guard from Holy Cross. Again, it really looks like just the protection for Patrick Mahomes. They didn't get any defensive line position. They only got defensive secondary. I think they should have gone for a tackle in the position to either tight end and in that fourth round pick. Either you go tackle or you go corner in that situation, and then you leave the tight end for the last pick, or even with the guard, you end up going tight end. I don't think running back was needed. Isaiah Pacheco's doing fine. Um, it wasn't needed. So tight end, I'm not worried about that one. So I ended up giving them a B minus on this. So yeah, we'll cut it off right here for part one. Ended off halfway with the Kansas City Chiefs. Be sure to watch part two to get the rest of the full grade. And yeah, so thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. To the next one.